Hey guys, Foxdrop here. Today I'm bringing you a breakdown video in partnership with the Ace Predator Training Room. Today we'll be taking a deeper look at some plays that happened and talking a bit about a theme surrounding those plays and how these things could have gone better and what you can learn from them to improve as a player moving forward. Specifically today we'll be tackling the theme of brain AFK gameplay. That's what I like to call the situations where you kind of just run around with your brain off and play on autopilot. This kind of gameplay leads you to making decisions where sometimes these things will work out, but other times they won't, and it turns you into a bit of a coin flippy player, and it's something that you want to take out of your game if you want a bit more consistency in the way that you're playing. So without any further ado, let's break down some plays. The first play I want to break down today is this Lee Sin invade onto an enemy Graves. As you can see, Lee Sin goes into the jungle, spots out the Graves, tries to fight him a little bit, isn't able to connect onto the Q, backs away but decides he's not had enough. Sweeps away this ward here and then goes back into the jungle, invading the chickens to contest these against the Graves. A fight ensues. Fists are flying, feet as well in Lee Sin's case, and Lee Sin comes out with the kill and also taking the chicken camp. So on the surface, he gets the invade, gets the solo kill, does a bit of counter jungling. Is this a good play overall? The answer is not really. So let's go into a bit more detail as to why that's the case. The first thing you have to consider whenever you're going for an invade is that jungle matchup. In this case, it's Lee Sin into Graves. Lee Sin has that level advantage, he has the double buffs, he will win this 1v1, not by much, but he will win it. But the second thing you have to consider after that is, will this likely be a 1v1? And to answer that question, you have to think about where you are on the map and who might join the fight. In this specific situation, Lee Sin is fighting at the chicken camp, which is very close to mid lane, and the enemy mid laner is an Aurelion Sol. This is a champion who is renowned for leaving that mid lane. In fact, he's probably the best mid laner at roaming around the map. And as this play unfolds, we know that Aurelion Sol is knocking about at his mid lane tower, well within reach of joining this fight. Aurelion Sol's counterpart, Lee Sin's closest ally, the Zillion, is not level 6, so hasn't really reached his strength yet, and doesn't really show much interest in joining this fight either. Not something that Lee Sin should be relying on. Outside of those factors, you've also got the fact that Lee Sin was spotted on a ward, so this play isn't exactly something that's sneaky, and that he has no flash. That's on cooldown. So when all is said and done, this is a bit of a brain AFK play. It's not thought through particularly well. Yes, Lee Sin will win this fight in the 1v1, but the chances of this play going horrifically wrong are pretty bloody high. And just because you get away with a play doesn't mean that it's a good play, and this is a good example of that. More often than not, a play like this in this situation will end up with you overextending and probably you dying. Now let's look at a similar but different play. This time the Graves is the aggressor invading the chicken camp against a Rengar. He goes in, he gets the fight onto Rengar. The mid laner does collapse on him, but he's able to duke out the skill shots, finish off the Rengar with the assist of his team, get out of there safely, and also pick up a cheeky second kill on the back of it, picking up the Veigar, picking up the Rengar, 2 kills for nothing. Another successful invade, but was this one a good decision? Yes, this was a much better example of a good invade, though I will put an asterisk next to it and I'll explain why later. But let's get into the details of why this was a good invade. So like with the last example, the first thing to consider is that jungle matchup in the 1v1 Graves into Rengar. Graves definitely has the bully potential here, especially if he's catching Rengar, clearing his jungle because he gets quite low while doing that, as you see in this clip. However, after you've come to the conclusion whether you can win the 1v1, you have to think about whether it's even going to be a 1v1. This is another invade that happens at the chicken camp, which is very close to mid lane, and as you can see in this instance, the enemy mid laner actually does come and join the fight. The thing is though, in this specific game with Veigar being the enemy mid laner, Veigar isn't a huge threat at this level. In fact, he's pretty crap here. And this is where the asterisk comes in, because if this were a different mid laner, this would be a horrendous invade leading into Graves' death. But because it's a Veigar, you can outplay his skill shots, not great at this level. it's not so bad. On top of that, his own mid laner is following this play. So even though it starts out as a 2v1, his Lux is coming up and she will be assisting in this fight. And on top of that, he also has his bot lane in the river, the Jhin getting that snipe in to assist the play too. And the icing on the cake, Graves has his flash, so there's a bit of an extra safety net there too. So this is another play which, on the face of it, is fine for Graves because as you can see, he gets 2 kills. The risk really for this play is tied to Veigar and his ability to hit his skill shots, but to be honest, they're not that hard to dodge as long as you don't face tank his cage and the stun that comes with it. So in order for this play to work out, there does need to be some outplay, dodging skill shots and stuff, but if you're confident in your ability to do that, bloody go for it. If it were a different mid laner from Veigar, if you weren't confident in your ability to dodge skill shots, this would be a horrendous invade, but with a little bit of faith and confidence, this is a pretty good play to take. If you guys have been paying attention to this video, you may have noticed that both of the junglers getting killed in these clips were actually me. So in order to restore just a tad of self-respect here, let's put me on the other end of the play for this last clip. And as you saw, this clip starts with the poor little Cho'Gath getting beaten down in the 1v1 for the first blood. He's died, he's out of there, he's in the Shadow Realm, he's waiting to respawn, and when he does respawn, he teleports back into lane onto the cannon minions so he can get up there, get the CS as fast as possible, put a bit of harass down as well. But I promise you I wouldn't be the butt of the clip this time around, and here you go, here's your favorite feeding YouTuber, it's your boy Foxy, swinging by for the pickup kill. Not only getting the kill, but also pushing this lane down, making it so that the Cho'Gath loses a whole ton of CS as well as his life. Now the brain AFK part of this clip obviously lies with the use of the teleport here. He teleports really far forward, and the first thing he has to ask himself before he does this is, do I have a risk of dying versus this Aurelia 1v1? The answer to this question realistically is probably not. She's a bit too low to really take me on 1v1. But the second thing you have to ask, as with every clip today, is this likely to be a 1v1? You're 3 minutes into the game, junglers often do that 3 buff clear, 3-minute gank. You know your friendly jungler isn't around to protect you or scout out the enemy jungler. You do not have your flash, you just lost that. You don't have your TP, meaning if you die again, it's pretty bad news bears. You're playing versus a high damage top laner and a high damage jungler. And at the end of the day, what do you gain from making this teleport? Not really anything, honestly. Essentially, this is just a classic brain AFK play where you're just not thinking it through. But what's really important to note about this is only a mistake by Cho'Gath if the enemy jungler shows up to punish him. Sadly for Cho'Gath, I do show up and I do punish him. But if this were a different game and I wasn't there or whoever was jungling wasn't there to punish him, this wouldn't be considered a mistake and he would not learn from this. But at the end of the day, regardless of whether the jungler's there or not, this is a mistake. It's a brain AFK play and you want to learn from these moving forward. So those are the 3 clips I want to show you demonstrating brain AFKism and why you've really got to think things through before you do them. Like I mentioned, this kind of stuff leads to really coin flippy plays because sometimes you get away with it, other times you don't. But really, if you're going to be a better player and you're trying to bring a bit of consistency into your game, you don't want this to happen in any of your games. You don't want to be making these mistakes, regardless of whether or not you're getting punished for them. If you are looking for ways to improve and to actually iron these out of your games, the first step is just recognizing that you're doing this kind of stuff, even when you're not actually punished for doing it. And for me, the best thing to do is to go back into your games in the replay function that we have in League. It only took them like 10 years to make it, but either way, we have it now. Let's use it. Just watch your games back and see whenever you make an aggressive play, just pause it and just evaluate the situation and see whether or not you really should be doing it. The use of your teleports, the use of your invades as a jungler like you saw in these clips, but even things like trading in lane, going for a gank or initiating a play later on. These are all proactive, aggressive plays that can work out or not work out depending on how you play them, and more specifically whether or not you stick your brain on and think about what might happen if you do go for those plays. For example, you might go for a gank and not actually realize that the enemy jungler should be around this area or might be around to counter you. You might go for a trade in lane and get absolutely blasted because you didn't consider whether or not the enemy jungler would be there, and he shows up and he kills you. I mean, he might not show up and he might not kill you, but either way, if you put yourself in a position where you could have died to him and you weren't in a position to protect yourself if he was there, then that's still a mistake. I think you get the idea, but yeah, like I say, generally speaking, watch your replays back. You'll learn a hell of a lot more watching them back rather than just going from game to game and playing and grinding out games. Thank you for watching the breakdown today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Thumbs up if you did. Subscribe to me for more Legends content. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter. And you can also find me on my second channel full of gameplays. All the links to the things I just mentioned are in el descripcione. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day, and I will see you in my next video.